Hello and welcome to a video where I'm exploring pinstriping brushes. So I found out about these pinstriping brushes on a reel in Instagram as I was watching some reels with my daughter, which is something we do every night for 2 minutes. So we just go to the explore section and we watch a couple of videos that show up, and I am subscribed to mostly art or artist accounts, and so mostly that's what we see. We see videos of people making something. And so one of those videos was of a person who is making lines, straight lines, with a brush. And I didn't know what that brush was called, and I was just intrigued. So I immediately Googled lining brush on the internet as soon as my daughter went to bed that night. And I discovered this whole world of pinstriping brushes. And so I bought myself a set of 5 and just started exploring on black watercolor paper. I'm using gouache paints on my left and metallic watercolor paints on the top. As I was doing this freestyle line drawing on the watercolor paper, I thought, while I'm experimenting, let's just see what happens if I start adding more water, adding more ink. And that's kind of when this mixed media exploration took on its own life. It ceased being just lines and became something more than that. So you can see me dropping acrylic inks there, which are blooming because the paper is super wet. And then I'm just dragging different sized brush tips through that paper to create even more chaos, as my daughter liked to call it in the moment. And I had so much water on that paper, I couldn't just kind of leave it be. And I didn't want to use my heat gun. So I took another strip of watercolor paper, Arches watercolor paper, and just kind of put it on top to wipe away the excess moisture from the black watercolor paper, which resulted in a very cool watercolor panel of its own. So far I had used metallic watercolors and gouache, and then I thought, well, what if I used acrylic paint? So I got out a tube of parchment colored acrylic paint and tried that, and then I mixed some liquid acrylic ink in the acrylic parchment color to make a lighter green, and kind of just exploring, this is all just me randomly making lines, getting a feel for the brush, if you will. I didn't have any goal of what kind of abstract painting I was going to make, or, if this was going to resemble something nebulous or from the universe or whatever. I just didn't have a plan. I was just trying to get a feel for the brush. Straight lines, curved lines, dotted lines, dashed lines, like what can this brush do? And also testing how different viscosities of paint are affecting how the brush moves on paper. So you have to have a lot of fluid. This paintbrush can hold a lot of fluid. So if you have a lot of fluid, it works really, really well. And what that means is if you're using a paint palette from a paint pan, your brush is going to get enough paint maybe to do a straight line or a curved line without any breaks. But if you're able to find something to dip the brush in, that is what is going to result in the most fluid, unbreakable lines, so to speak. So this is just me trying to see what if I try to make petals with this brush, will that work? Again, this is, a scrap piece of paper essentially at this point, and with no agenda. Just again exploring. And then I thought, what if I took out my acrylic ink dropper and just dipped my brush in there? And you know what? That is actually the best way to paint with this brush, is what I'm discovering. If you have liquid ink or liquid paint or liquid color that you can dip your brush in, that's the best. And distress ink reinkers, I have so many of them. This was like the aha moment that I had. And you can just have so much fun. Just take out the dropper, put the brush in, and then if they are water-soluble inks, you can squirt some more water and let it spread, and you'll have faint outlines of those lines, but you'll have something else. So you could just play with it, and I was just so excited doing this. It was fascinating to explore, and I am so happy to be able to share this exploration in as I was doing it, because it's just something new that's exciting, and I know it's not new, but it's new for me. And I'm figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And in the meantime, as all of this is happening, I'm getting a background that I can then use to make, gratitude cards like I always do. The other thing I wanted to try before I cut these paintings up was to see if I could use these brushes for script writing. So I'm really bad at calligraphy. I'm trying to get better, and I'm learning that the slower and more deliberate you are in your movements, the better your writing will be. But it's very difficult to write with a brush that has a tip this long. So I'm sure with practice I'll get better, but for now this was arduous for me to do. I still got something legible out of it, but I'm looking forward to exploring the calligraphy aspects of this brush. So I just wrote "Be Kind" on the back panel of this painting, the white one, and I started cutting up the black watercolor paper. I have been making tags using my Fisker's tag punch, but more and more I'm finding that if I use my trimmer and just cut strips of paper in a 3x2 size, round out the corners, put a little hole in the middle, it just works out faster. So it's a more efficient way for me to make multiple tags than to make them individually using my tag puncher. So more and more I'm kind of leaning toward making tags this way. And I like the shape of the tag puncher though, because that is a more traditional tag that looks like a traditional tag. But I think these look like tags too. And yesterday when I was handing these out, nobody said, "Hey, what is that?" They took the token of things and they knew it was a tag. So it all works out at the end of the day with these gratitude tags. It doesn't have to be a special format in any sense. So here you can see me just rounding out the corners, punching in the holes, and then I had all these die cuts from one day when I sat down and just took out all my thanks dies and my gold glitter paper and just die cut a bunch of thank yous and thanks. So I had those lying around and I decided to just play with them on this amazing background that I had just created. And you can see how when it is on one sheet of paper versus when it's cut up, how different anything looks. So you add a couple of marks on that with Posca markers or Sharpies or metallic markers. You could still be using the paintbrush even at this stage to do your mark making. Just have fun, and at the end of the day you have a thank you tag to hand out to someone in your community who is just doing their job, and you can be responsible for making their day. So I love making gratitude tags, and any opportunity I get to use up any papers that I have created, be it by way of exploratory painting, as in today's case, or be it by way of gel plate printing, because I accumulate a lot when I do gel plate printing, and I find this to be a very, very good way of using up those paintings instead of them sitting in a drawer somewhere or being scanned and used for prints and all that good stuff. I like handing these out. I really feel it adds more meaning to my work. It keeps me going. I don't feel like I'm wasting paper when I'm doing any experiments because I am turning these into tokens of love and appreciation, and they bring sunshine to somebody's world. So I would highly encourage you to experiment more, to share freely, and you feel the abundance of love and joy that the process of making something brings to you, and also the love that you feel your heart fills with when you hand out something handmade to a person who is not expecting it. So it's a win-win, it really is. And I didn't waste any of the scraps, essentially even the 3x2. So when I was cutting the 3x2s, I had a thin strip of paper and I didn't waste that. I actually made that into a slimline tag, if you will. A very, very slim tag that holds the thanks die cut perfectly. If you don't have die cuts, I have many ways of just using stamps or even just handwriting thank you on a tag. Again, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be so artistic that it needs to be framed. It can just be playful. It can just be fun and still be so meaningful. So I hope you liked this exploration, and I ended up with a ton of thank you tags from my creative play, and I encourage you to engage in some creative play of your own. It doesn't have to be with pinstriping brushes, but just throw some ink on paper and see what happens. Cut it up, make it into gratitude tags, and go spread some joy and love in your community. And take care. Remember to always be kind to yourself and to others. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I am so grateful for each and every one of you.